Welcome to the virtual class of history. So today I'll teach you a new chapter from history, that is a rise of radical nationalism. So you can see over here I've already written it over on the board. So a rise of radical nationalism, and these four causes we'll try to do it today. Okay, so as you all know that in the previous class I taught you the role of moderates and the achievements of the moderates, who were moderates, why were they called moderates, all those things I discussed in the previous class. So from 1885 to 1905, this span of 20 years was a phase of the moderates. So moderates were the early congressmen. They were the Congress members who were there from the very beginning of the formation of Indian National Congress. So 1905 onward, there was a rise of radical nationalism. So they were the young congressmen, the young leaders of the Congress, who were very much filled with enthusiasm regarding the freedom of the country, and they believed that the moderates' way of achieving their objectives is not at all going to work for them. That is why they decided to come out with some radical views and radical ideas. So let us discuss one by one what were the causes which led to the growth of radical nationalism within the Congress. So there should not be a confusion regarding who were radicals. Simple, like early congressmen, they were known as moderates because of their moderate nature. So the young congressmen who later on joined in 1905 onward or before that, they were known as radicals because they wanted fast results. They were not ready to follow the policy of prayer and petition. They did not have patience to wait for gaining freedom. That is why their method, their policies were very, very different. That is why they were known as radicals. They wanted fast changes. So radicals, aggressive nationalism, okay, assertive nationalism, all are for the same congressman who joined later on in 1900 and 1905 onward, who became very, very active in the national movement. So first one over here is that first thing why there was a rise of nationalism, radical nationalism. First one is failure of the moderates. So accordingly, the radicals felt that the moderates means to achieve their objectives is not at all successful. They have been pleading, they have been sending petitions, they have been sending memorandums to the British government, but no result yet had been confirmed. That is why they felt that the moderates had completely failed. And in the year 1905, when there was declaration of the partition of Bengal, at that time also the moderates were very, very lenient, and they were not ready to follow some aggressive measures against the Britishers. That is why the radicals, they felt that the moderates definitely are not going to stop this partition of Bengal. So you can see that the new radical groups, they believed that the leaders lack essential need to national movement. There are certain things missing out in the moderates. Okay, so they are not at all in touch with the common people. So moderate not only were early congressmen, they were highly educated also. According to the radical, they feel that they had fallen sort of in touch with the common people of the country, who need to be brought into the platform for getting more and more support and making them politically conscious. So moderates also had failed to secure any substantial political reforms from the British government, because a long list of objectives we had studied in the previous class, constitutional reforms, okay, and a lot of demands they had placed in front of the British government, but none of the demands were fulfilled by the Britishers. None of the demands like expansion of legislature, okay, abolition of Indian Council, ICSE examination to be held in India, complete so long list of demands they had, but this 20 years, the 20 years of the moderates, they could not achieve much. That is why the radicals felt that now their way, their method definitely would bring certain results in the national movement. That is why they came forward with aggressiveness. Okay, so one thing is there, that moderates had a full faith in the British sense of justice, but that was lacking among the that was lacking among the radicals. Radicals, they did not have faith. They did not have faith in the British sense of justice. They felt that this way we are not going to achieve our freedom. So we need to bring certain changes in our methods to achieve our objectives. So all these things made the radicals feel that the moderates had completely failed. So they could not achieve any success during the national movement. Okay, it was the opinion of the radicals. That also prompted them to come forward to lead the national movement and to gain freedom for the country. So failure of the moderates was one of the reasons for the rise of nationalism. So they were waiting and waiting, they were watching. They were definitely there within the Congress, they were watching the works of the moderates, but ultimately they failed. Ultimately they understood that the method which they are following is going to work for the country. That is why then the lead was taken by the extremists. The next one you can see here, worsening economic condition of the country. The country's economic condition is worsening day by day. Okay, as you know that with the coming of Britishers in our country, the first thing was destroyed was our handicraft industries, our small scale industries. They completely were disturbed and they lost their jobs. Many people became unemployed. Okay, and not only that, you can see that in the 19th century, or we can say that towards the end of 19th century, my dear, from 1896 to 1900, okay, it took a toll of over 90 lakhs of lives due to famine. There was a terrible famine in our country, and it took almost 90 lakhs of lives of the people of our country, and government did nothing to provide them any relief measures. In spite of helping and giving relief measures to the Indians, my dear, who were suffering due to famine, my dear, they were busy celebrating the Silver Jubilee celebration of the Queen Victoria's accession to the throne. So for them, the death was of no importance. They were busy celebrating Queen Victoria's Silver Jubilee celebration. Okay, this exposed the British nature. This exposed the true nature of British administration in our country. They are not concerned about the life of the people of our country. Okay, then we can understand that Indians' conditions were becoming worse day by day, and who was responsible for that? The British government was responsible for that. Okay, the helpless condition of the Indians forced the radicals to come up with some radical ideas. Okay, and this policy definitely was felt by them that will provide some certain better results for the country. So worsening economic condition of the people, unjust and repressive policies of the British government provided a congenial ground for the growth of radical nationalism. So this is all about the worsening economic condition of our country, made the radicals feel that the policy and the programs and the methods which the moderates they are continuing is not going to bring any results. That is why there was a rise of radical nationalism. Radicals, they wanted to bring certain and fast changes with their method of struggle. So that we'll discuss later on what were the methods of the radical nationalists. Now the third one you can see here, the ill treatment of the Indians in Africa. Ill treatments of the Indians in Africa. So you know that British had developed so many colonies in Africa, and everywhere in South Africa, Indians were working over there to help the Britishers and all. Okay, so everywhere, wherever the British colonies were there, where the Indians were working, my dear, they were subjected to racial discrimination. So you know that in South Africa, racial discrimination was followed. Even Mahatma Gandhi had to face this once when he was in South Africa. So in these colonies where Indians lived, my dear, they were denied the right to vote. Okay, they could not enter the buses or railway coaches which were reserved for the whites, my dear. So the racial discrimination been followed in most of the colonies of Britain in Africa and other countries, my dear, okay, led to the rise of radical nationalism. So they felt that everywhere Indians who are helping the Britishers to to help them in their work and all, they are denied their rights. Some of the basic rights were denied to them. So discriminatory treatment meted out to the Indians in British colonies also led to the rise of radical nationalism. That also was one of the reasons for the rise of radical nationalism. So the fourth one you can see here, influence of international events. Influence of international events. So at that time when Indian national movement was going on, what all things were going on in the other part of the world, my dear? So some of the international events also was responsible for the rise of radical nationalism, like events in other parts of the world also popularized radical actions. Like examples I'll give you, like Russia's defeat by Japan in 1905. Russia was defeated by Japan, a tiny island country, okay, and the defeat of Italy in the hands of Ethiopians in 1896, my dear, showed that Europeans were not invincible. So they had a belief, there was a myth that Europeans are very, very powerful and they cannot be defeated. So this international events encourage the Indians feel that no, these Europeans can also be defeated. Like Russia, a very powerful country, was defeated by a tiny Asia, that means island country, that is Japan in 1904, 1905. And you can see Italy was defeated by a very small country, again Ethiopia. That also was encouragement for the Indians and rest of the other rest of the countries who were under the British rule to feel that yes, these Europeans can also be defeated. They are not at all invincible. They can be defeated. And next one you can see, in Ireland the people were waging a home rule movement. In Ireland the people were waging a home rule movement, my dear. Okay, home rule agitation against the British. So all these things inspired the people. Everywhere they wanted freedom. Everywhere changes are taking place. Okay, so why not we also start in that line? Why don't we start in a radical line? That is why the radicals, they thought that this is the right movement to hit on the right spot, my dear. So revolutionary movement in Turkey, Iran, Egypt, China convinced the Indians, my dear, that if they were united and were willing to make sacrifices, they could defeat a country as powerful as England. So that was convinced. The people, Indian radicals, were convinced if we unitedly fight against them, we can definitely become successful. So that is all about the international events. International events inspired the radicals to come up with more radical moves. Okay. So next one we'll discuss. Let me finish it. So next one, number 5, repressive policies of Lord Curzon. As you know that the popularity of the Congress was increasing day by day. That is why, in order to break the unity of the people of India, my dear, Lord Curzon was assigned this task to crush the nationalistic spirit of the people of Bengal. So Lord Curzon continued the policy of repression followed by Lord Lytton. So after Lord Lytton, Lord Curzon became the viceroy of our country. So he did not want to grant any kind of freedom, my dear. He did not want to grant any kind of freedom to the Indians. So his one point agenda was to crush the growing demand for the self-government or the self-rule by the Indians. So his main motive was to crush the nationalistic spirit and the growing demand of the self-rule by the Indians. So some of the repressive policies, like when he became the viceroy, the first thing he did was in 1899 he came out with the Calcutta Corporation Act. So what was Calcutta Corporation Act? So this act, my dear, reduced the elected Indian members to half, thereby giving the British majority. The members in the Calcutta Corporation, Indian members were reduced and majority of Britishers were increased, my dear. Okay, in 1904, my dear, Indian Universities Act was passed. Indian University Act was passed, my dear, and this act imposed a strict control over the Indian universities and reduced their autonomy. Indian universities' autonomy was reduced. The next one, in 1907, my dear, Serious Meeting Act was passed, my dear. And this act was passed in order to prevent political meeting against the government. This act was passed in order to prevent political meetings against the government. Then again in 1908, my dear, 1908, Explosive Substance Act was passed. So this act was passed in order to imprison without a trial those involved in making or using explosive for the attack. And then Official Secret Act also was passed, my dear. This act was passed in order to curtail the liberties of the people. And the last repressive act, repressive policy done, or we can say followed by Lord Curzon, was the partition of Bengal, which was very, very interesting to understand, my dear. So partition of Bengal, it was a last straw, my dear. It was a last straw, okay, that was planted by, or we can say that done by Lord Curzon. So Lord Curzon's decision to partition Bengal, my dear, was the most hated and the condemned measures that he adopted. So a fierce anti-partition movement had launched, which was suppressed by English with heavy hand. So we have discussed this in the previous class also regarding the partition of Bengal. So after completing this, once again I'll discuss about the partition of Bengal in a proper way. So all this were responsible for the rise of radical nationalism, my dear. Okay. So now let us discuss about the objective of the extremist. Very, very simple. We are not going to waste our time like the moderates they did, my dear. The objective of the extremists were only one objective they had. They wanted to attain self-government. They just simply demanded Swaraj, or the self-government. Nothing else. Nothing else. They just simply demanded Swaraj, that is the self-government. Okay. Even the Bal Gangadhar Tilak once he had said that his famous slogan is also there, my dear. Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. I shall have it. Okay. He even said, my dear, freedom cannot be achieved by begging balls, my dear. It has to be fought for. So by that we can understand how aggressive these radicals were. Okay. And to achieve these objectives, my dear, so only one objective, they wanted Swaraj, nothing else. They wanted self-government. So in order to achieve that objective, what method was followed by them? Which were the methods followed by them? So very, very simple, my dear. They followed, very, very simple. They followed number 1, Swadeshi, number 2, boycott, number 3, national education, and number 4, revivalism. So what were these? Swadeshi. That means in order to teach the Britishers a lesson, we need to depend upon Swadeshi goods. We need to boycott the British goods. Okay. And when we start our Swadeshi movement or boycott movement, my dear, definitely we will not only boycott the British goods, we will also boycott the schools and colleges. So during that time, we need a national education also for the Indians. Okay. So national education will provide, my dear, all-round development. National education which they had planned will provide all-round development, including vocational, political and secular. Okay. And then revivalism, my dear. So in order to instill courage and strength among the Indians, my dear, they need to do something. So Bal Gangadhar Tilak started, or he revived the Ganpati festival, which is one of the most popular festival of Maharashtra, my dear. Ganpati festival was revived. Okay. Not only that, Shivaji festival was revived. So by this, I think you understood that Bal Gangadhar Tilak was from Maharashtra. He was a Marathi person. Okay. So Ganpati festival was revived. Shivaji festival was revived. Definitely, what was the motive? So definitely, when we celebrate something like when we are celebrating Shivaji festival, so the young generation definitely will ask, so why we are celebrating? What is the story behind this Shivaji? Definitely, then people will narrate the story of Shivaji's valor, how he fought against the Mughal rule, right? And that will give courage. That will encourage the people, young people, to become more and more strong and to go against the British rule. Okay, Ganpati festival definitely will bring unity. People will gather. They will have a oneness, commonness among the people, and that way, feeling of oneness definitely will develop among the people. Not only that, my dear, Lati clubs and akhadas were also introduced, where they were taught how to play latis, akhadas like wrestlings and all. In Hindi, we call them kusti and all. That will make the young people strong and all. So for that, everything was done by all these radicals, my dear. Now, if you talk about the belief, what were the beliefs of the radicals, my dear? So very simple, my dear. They had no faith in the British sense of justice. Whereas in the earlier class I told you, moderates had unlimited faith in the British sense of justice, my dear. But here we see they don't have a faith. Okay, they don't have full faith in the British sense of justice. So the radicals highlighted the dishonesty and betrayal by means of which British had conquered India. So how they betrayed us, how they with their dishonesty they had conquered our country was exposed to the people of our country, my dear. So this is all about the radicals' beliefs, the methods, and their objectives. Only one objective, they want Swaraj, and the method they followed in order to achieve their objective was Swadeshi, boycott, national education, revivalism. Okay, so that was there. And then belief, as you know, that they had no faith, or we can say that they did not have full faith in the British sense of justice. So this is all about from this chapter. So we'll meet again next class. Till then, take care, stay safe, bye bye.